Owen Mitchell stood at the window of his cabin, watching snow fall over the mountain landscape. The Christmas tree glowed behind him, perfectly decorated by a service he'd paid to come in while he was at work. Presents he'd ordered online sat beneath it, wrapped by strangers and addressed to family members he'd see for exactly 3 hours on Christmas Day before making excuses to leave. At 35, Owen was the CEO of Mitchell Tech, a software company he'd built from nothing into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. He had everything he'd worked for: success, wealth, a beautiful cabin in the mountains where he could escape the demands of the city. What he didn't have was anyone to share it with. His last relationship had ended 2 years ago when his girlfriend finally accepted that he'd never prioritize her over his work. Since then, his friends had been relentless in their attempts to set him up, pushing him toward blind dates with an enthusiasm that bordered on harassment. "You need to stop hiding behind your computer," his best friend Marcus had said just last week. "You're going to wake up at 50, successful and completely alone." "I'm fine with alone," Owen had replied. "Relationships are complicated and time-consuming. I don't have room in my life for that kind of distraction." But the truth was lonelier than Owen wanted to admit. He'd come to the cabin for a quiet Christmas, telling himself he needed the solitude to recharge. Really, he just didn't want to face another holiday surrounded by couples and families. Being the odd one out, fielding questions about when he'd finally settle down. His phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Annual Christmas party tonight." "You're coming," Owen typed back. "I'm at the cabin. 3 hours away. Can't make it." The response came immediately. "Excuses. You know the roads are clear. Get your antisocial butt down here." "It's Christmas Eve," Owen sighed. Marcus was right about the roads, and turning down another invitation would just fuel more lectures about his self-imposed isolation. Maybe an hour at the party wouldn't kill him. 3 hours later, Owen found himself in Marcus's crowded living room, nursing a drink and trying to look engaged in conversations about topics he couldn't care less about. The house was full of Marcus's friends and colleagues, most of whom Owen knew only peripherally. "Owen Mitchell as I live and breathe," a voice said behind him. "The hermit emerges from his cave." Owen turned to find Jessica Park, another of Marcus's close friends, grinning at him. "Hello, Jessica." "Don't hello, Jessica me. We all know you're only here because Marcus threatened you. But now that you are here, we're playing a game." "I don't play games," Owen said flatly. "This one you will," Jessica replied, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "It's called Christmas Dares. Everyone draws a card with a dare on it. And you have to complete it before midnight, or you owe $100 to the charity of the group's choice." "That's ridiculous. That's the spirit," Jessica said, ignoring his protest and dragging him to where a group had gathered around a bowl of folded cards. Owen watched as people drew cards and read their dares. Sing a Christmas carol in front of everyone. Call your ex and apologize for something you didn't do. Tell someone here your most embarrassing secret. When it was his turn, Owen reluctantly drew a card. He unfolded it and read, "Go to the address below. When someone answers, say, 'I came because I heard you didn't believe in Christmas magic.' Do not leave until you've spent at least 30 minutes there." An address was written at the bottom, somewhere in the residential area about 20 minutes away. "That's a stupid dare," Owen said. "That's the dare you got," Marcus said, suddenly appearing beside Jessica with a grin that suggested he'd had something to do with this. "And you're doing it, or you're paying up? Plus, you'll forever be known as the guy who was too scared to complete a simple Christmas dare." "I'm not scared. I'm rational. This is someone's home. I'd be disturbing them on Christmas Eve." "The person at that address knows the game," Jessica explained. "They're expecting someone. Just go, say the line, hang out for 30 minutes, and come back. Easy." Owen looked at the address again. Everything about this felt like a setup, but his friends were watching him expectantly, and his pride wouldn't let him back down over something so trivial. "Fine," he said. 30 minutes. 20 minutes later, Owen stood outside a small but charming house decorated with tasteful white lights and a wreath on the door. Snow was falling harder now, and he was already regretting this ridiculous errand. He knocked, preparing to deliver the absurd line and get this over with. The door opened. and Owen forgot what he was supposed to say. The woman standing in the doorway was stunning, even in simple jeans and a red sweater. She had auburn hair that fell in waves around her shoulders and green eyes that held intelligence and warmth. She looked at him with curiosity but no surprise. "Can I help you?" she asked. Owen remembered the dare. "I came because I heard you didn't believe in Christmas magic." The woman's face broke into a smile that transformed her from pretty to absolutely radiant. "Well, that's quite an opening line. Are you here to convince me otherwise?" "Apparently," Owen said. "Look, this is part of a dare from a Christmas party. I'm supposed to stay for 30 minutes. I know this is weird and I'm sorry to bother you, but my friends are insufferable and I just want to get this over with." The woman laughed, and the sound was like music. "You certainly know how to make a girl feel special. I'm Natalie, by the way. And yes, I know about the game. My cousin Jessica warned me someone would be coming by." Owen felt his face flush. "Jessica Park is your cousin?" "Unfortunately," Natalie said with a grin. "She's been trying to set me up for months. I finally agreed to participate in this scheme just to get her off my back. Come in before you freeze." Owen stepped inside, and the warmth of the house enveloped him. It was nothing like his sterile cabin or modern penthouse. This house felt lived in, loved. A real Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with what looked like handmade ornaments. A fire crackled in the fireplace, and a young girl, maybe 6 years old, sat on the floor arranging a nativity scene. "Who's that, Mommy?" the girl asked, looking up at Owen with curious brown eyes. "This is Mr. Mitchell," Natalie said. "He's here for a visit." "Owen, this is my daughter, Sophie." Owen felt his stomach drop. Of course she had a child. Of course she was probably married. This whole thing was getting more awkward by the second. "Where's Mr. Natalie?" Owen asked, then immediately cringed at how that came out. Natalie's smile faltered slightly. "There is no Mr. Natalie, it's just Sophie and me. Has been for the past 5 years. I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "It's fine," Natalie said, though her voice had cooled slightly. "Why don't you sit down? Can I get you some hot chocolate?" Sophie and I were just about to have some. What followed was perhaps the strangest 30 minutes of Owen's life. He sat on Natalie's couch drinking hot chocolate while Sophie told him elaborate stories about each ornament on the tree, and Natalie interjected with corrections and context. The little girl was charming and enthusiastic, and Natalie was patient and warm with her in a way that made Owen's chest ache with something he couldn't name. "That one is from when Mommy taught me to ice skate," Sophie explained, pointing to an ornament shaped like a skate. "I fell down 100 times, but Mommy said that's how you learn." "Falling down is an important part of learning," Owen found himself saying. "In business, we call it failing forward. What's business?" Sophie asked. "It's what grown-ups do to make money," Natalie explained. "What kind of business are you in, Owen?" "I run a tech company. Software development, mostly enterprise solutions for—" He stopped, realizing he was about to bore a 6-year-old with technical details. "I make computer programs that help other companies work better." "That sounds important," Natalie said, and Owen couldn't tell if she was being sincere or polite. "It pays the bills," he said with a shrug. "What do you do?" "I'm a teacher. 2nd grade at Lincoln Elementary. Not as lucrative as tech, but I love it." "Mommy helps kids learn to read," Sophie added. "She says reading is like magic because it lets you go anywhere and be anyone." "Your mommy sounds very wise," Owen said, and meant it. As the minutes passed, Owen found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did around new people. Natalie was easy to talk to, asking questions that suggested genuine interest rather than polite small talk. Sophie was endearing in her enthusiasm, and the warmth of the house made Owen realize how cold and empty his own spaces felt. When his phone buzzed with a text from Marcus asking if he'd completed the dare, Owen realized with surprise that not only had 30 minutes passed, but nearly an hour had. "I should probably go," Owen said reluctantly. "I've imposed on your Christmas Eve long enough." "You weren't imposing," Natalie said, and she sounded sincere. "This has actually been nice. Sophie and I don't usually have company on Christmas Eve." "Why not?" Owen asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. But Natalie didn't seem offended. Sophie's father left when she was a baby. My family lives across the country. Most of my friends are spending tonight with their own families. It's usually just us, which is fine. We have our traditions. We make cookies and watch movies and read the night before Christmas, Sophie said. And Mommy always says Christmas magic is real even though I'm too old to believe in Santa anymore. You're never too old to believe in magic, Natalie said gently, tucking a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. Magic is just another word for hope and wonder and believing good things can happen. Owen felt something shift in his chest. I should go, he said again, but didn't move. Or, Natalie said slowly, meeting his eyes, you could stay a little longer. We have plenty of cookies and Sophie loves having an audience for her Christmas movie commentary. Please stay, Sophie said, bouncing on her toes. You seem sad and Mommy says nobody should be sad on Christmas Eve. I'm not sad, Owen protested. You have sad eyes, Sophie said with the blunt honesty of children. Like you forgot how to smile for real. Owen looked at this little girl who'd somehow seen through him in less than an hour, and then at Natalie, who was watching him with understanding and something else, something that looked like an invitation to stay not out of obligation, but genuine interest. I could stay for a little longer, Owen heard himself say. 1 hour turned into 2, then 3. They made cookies, and Owen found himself laughing as Sophie critiqued his decorating skills. They watched a Christmas movie, and Owen listened to Sophie's running commentary with amusement. Natalie brought out a well-worn copy of The Night Before Christmas, and when she asked if Owen wanted to read it, he found himself saying yes. Sitting on the couch with Sophie curled up on one side and Natalie on the other, reading about Christmas magic and believing, Owen felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Belonging. The sense that this moment, this simple act of sharing a story with virtual strangers, mattered more than all his success and achievements. After Sophie had been put to bed, Natalie returned to find Owen still sitting on the couch, staring at the fire. You don't have to stay, she said softly. The dare is long since completed. I know, Owen replied, but I don't want to leave. Is that strange? Natalie sat beside him, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something subtle and warm. Not strange at all. I don't want you to leave either. Your cousin set this up, didn't she? Owen asked. This wasn't random. Jessica has been plotting for months, Natalie admitted with a laugh. She works with Marcus, heard about you, decided we'd be perfect for each other, and engineered this whole elaborate scheme. I told her you'd probably hate it, that I'd probably hate it, but she insisted. I didn't hate it, Owen said quietly. This has been the best Christmas Eve I've had in years. Maybe ever? Really? Natalie looked surprised. Better than whatever billionaire CEO Christmas parties you usually attend? I don't attend those, Owen said. I work. Or I hide in my cabin alone pretending I prefer solitude to company. Tonight, sitting here with you and Sophie, I remembered what I've been missing. And what's that? Natalie asked softly. Connection, Owen said. Purpose that isn't measured in profit margins. The feeling of being somewhere I actually want to be instead of somewhere I should be. Natalie was quiet for a moment, then said, Can I tell you something that might sound forward? Please. When Jessica told me about this plan, I looked you up. Successful CEO, impressive resume, kind of intimidating from the outside. I expected someone arrogant or cold or just going through the motions to win a dare. But you sat on my floor playing with my daughter. You listened to her stories like they mattered. You read to her like it was the most important thing you could be doing. That's not the person I expected. Maybe I'm not the person I expected either, Owen replied. Maybe I've been so busy being successful that I forgot to actually live. He turned to face her. Natalie, I know this is fast and weird and we just met because of an elaborate setup. But I'd like to see you again. Not because of a dare or obligation, but because tonight showed me what I've been missing. You and Sophie, this house, the way you make Christmas feel like it actually means something instead of just being another day to get through. Natalie smiled, and Owen felt his heart race. I'd like that too. But fair warning, I come as a package deal. Sophie and I are a team. I wouldn't want it any other way, Owen said honestly. They saw each other the next day and the day after that. Owen met Sophie for breakfast and spent the day helping them build a snowman. He joined them for a New Year's Eve that involved sparkling cider and board games instead of champagne and formal parties. Over the months that followed, Owen found himself restructuring his life around time with Natalie and Sophie. He cut his work hours, promoted capable people to handle tasks he'd been micromanaging, and discovered that his company ran just fine without him being there 18 hours a day. He taught Sophie about computers and business, making it fun and accessible. She taught him about joy and wonder and seeing the world with fresh eyes. And Natalie, brilliant, warm, patient Natalie, showed him that love wasn't a distraction from life, but the very thing that made life worth living. A year after that Christmas Eve dare, Owen proposed not in a fancy restaurant, but in Natalie's living room, in front of the same tree where he'd first felt like he'd come home. Sophie had helped him pick out the ring and was in on the plan, barely able to contain her excitement. "I came to your door because of a dare," Owen said as he knelt in front of Natalie. "I came expecting to fulfill an obligation and leave. Instead, I found everything I'd been missing without knowing it was missing. You've taught me that success without connection is just loneliness in an expensive suit. That magic is real when you have someone to believe in it with. That home isn't a place but the people who make you want to stay. Will you marry me?" Natalie said yes through tears, and Sophie launched herself at both of them, declaring this the best Christmas magic ever even though it was July. Years later, when people asked how they met, Owen loved telling the story of the Christmas dare that changed his life, about how he'd thought blind dates and setups were jokes, until a cousin's scheme and a snowy night brought him to a door he'd been too stubborn to find on his own. And every Christmas Eve, they recreated that first night, cookies and movies and the night before Christmas, reminding themselves that sometimes the best things in life come from accepting dares we think are foolish, from opening doors we'd normally keep closed, from believing in magic even when we've convinced ourselves we're too rational and successful to need it. Because that's what Owen learned that snowy Christmas Eve. That all his success meant nothing compared to sitting on a couch with a woman who challenged him and a child who trusted him. That the best things in life can't be scheduled or controlled, and that sometimes Christmas magic finds us exactly when we need it most, even when we're certain we don't believe in it at all. If this story warmed your heart and reminded you that love often finds us when we stop running from it, and that family can be found through unlikely doors, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about second chances, Christmas magic, and the courage to open our hearts when we least expect to. Comment below about a time when something you thought was silly turned into something meaningful, or about learning to believe in magic again. Sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in dares we're too stubborn to refuse.